welcome back to episode 7 of What's Spinnin'. You're joined here with Brett and Mitch, and we have a new guest here joining us today. Thank you so much for joining us, Jeff Reinke. Jeff currently is the Director of Content and Audience Development for Industrial Media. A bunch of brands include the Industrial Equipment News, Manufacturing.net, amongst many others. He hosts the Today in Manufacturing and Security Breach podcast.
Cool.
And he's got over 15 years of experience creating and managing business-to-business strategic content, and has seen and worked with all kinds of people, including Microsoft, IBM, Cisco, Rockwell. I worked for Rockwell for a little bit myself, actually. And
you worked with our overlords, IBM.
Yeah. And well, I guess without further ado, Jeff, thanks for joining us on What's Spinnin'.
No, my pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So how we like to start is just kind of a general, the name of the podcast started, What's Spinnin'? Because, well, hard drive spin, and we're everything storage, right? But it's got a good double meaning of just asking our guests what's spinning in their world. Mm-hmm. So you've got your specialty comes from the kind of manufacturing back end. We ourselves have
extensive back.
Our parents, if you will,
exactly.
Our parent company, Protocase, is a manufacturing plant. We grew out our 45Drives brand, grew out of that. So we grew up next door, adjacent to manufacturing. But what we wanted to ask you right now is, who is Jeff Reinke? What got you into this world? What got you down this path of manufacturing and all
the IT sphere?
Yeah, I don't know. Just what brings you from your interest? What got you started? What got you here? And what keeps you going?
Well, I mean, I was really lucky. I actually got an opportunity to join sort of the manufacturing sector, like you said, about 15, a little bit more than that, years ago. Basically, to be honest, it was a job offer. It's an opportunity to continue to do the things that I really love, which is writing and reporting on things that are going on in a really interesting sector. And I went from automotive tools and equipment to manufacturing. So there were some parallels there when you look at the user, the audience, things like that. But coming over to manufacturing and understanding just developing a greater appreciation in how it impacts every single thing we do on a daily basis has been really fascinating. And then understanding a lot of the technology that's driving U.S. manufacturing and allowing it to do so many diverse and amazing things that impacts everything, like you said, on a daily basis. So I think that the thing that's really, we're talking about what's spinning and what's going on. I think with what we're covering right now, it's never been a more exciting time within the manufacturing sector, just in the different deluge of technologies that we are developing and that we are integrating. We've been talking about them for a while, but now we're actually seeing a lot of it come to fruition. And with all of that new technology becomes new connection points, new security concerns, more IT investment, things like that. So it's a cool time to be associated with manufacturing and talking about the things going on.
Interesting. It's funny, you talk about the technology and how it keeps changing and how it keeps leveling up the manufacturing world and what we see. And I remember like 5-10 years ago, all you were hearing in like supply chain and management and manufacturing was, blockchain is going to be the next big thing. And obviously AI is the big thing that's on the tip of everyone's tongue these days. How are you seeing AI starting to really bleed into that world and start to change or shape the manufacturing world?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we're talking about AI so much in so many different sort of applications throughout our daily lives and into manufacturing and such. You talk about supply chain. It's really interesting there when you look at the evolution of different technologies that have come about there and how much more important supply chain management has become and how it's just become so ingrained into everyone's daily conversation, sort of with the pandemic and everything there. Yeah, and when you look at AI, we've had iterations of AI for quite a while. When you look at machine learning and a lot of things that we've done on the automation front, so it's not a completely foreign concept. But what it's really doing is where we are right now is taking artificial intelligence and understanding the different applications it has. For manufacturing, that means there are some things that we can automate without people to help different processes become more efficient. And it's not necessarily about eliminating people from the conversation or from the workflow. It's taking advantage of this technology to use people better and to put them in situations where they can improve production and efficiencies, supply chain management, all of those different things. The other area that we hear so much about AI is there's a lot of hand-wringing when it comes to cybersecurity, because cybersecurity in the industrial sector has become a huge point We all heard about Colonial Pipeline. There's been other hacks recently in the news. Even it's stuff that was going on with MGM. That wasn't necessarily an industrial element, but there's a lot of factors that we can take away from the scheme that was used there that has been used to manufacturers to hack into their systems. So AI is a big concern because obviously the hackers are going to use it to develop smarter phishing attacks and other taking advantage of other exploits. But my argument is always there's a lot of white hat approaches and a lot of amazing ways that we can use AI to help our cybersecurity, to help our endpoint protection, to help our production efficiencies as well. So I think once we stop worrying about it so much and just start really digging in and appreciating what it can do, there's a lot less concern and a lot more celebrating. Quite honestly, it's a pretty amazing thing.
Yeah, well said. Because that comes up all over, even on the programming side of things. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to replace everyone's job." No, it's just another platform to get better. Remember when computers came out? They were going to make everyone obsolete. You don't need office workers anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's just another more efficient way to make things happen. You said another interesting thing there too about the. Oh God, I just lost it. I was first going to talk about the fact that the people thing is never going away. Like we're going to have people. It doesn't matter how you're going to need people to program the AI and people to manage the AI, and it's just going to make our much more efficient. And I'll think about the other thing because it was
perfect.
Well, it's funny too. When ChatGPT came out, just looking at sort of the other hat I wear as just a writer and reporter. People were thinking that job was going away. And I'm like, no, man, it makes our job that much more important because that AI needs some sort of source material to grab onto and learn from.
Yeah.
It just makes the creation of all of that new and innovative, whether it's technology, content, whatever the case is, that much more important in order to leverage the AI. And I think we're getting better at understanding that.
Yeah, 100%. I remember what it was. So you mentioned that the hackers are going to start using it, and they're going to start using it for phishing attacks. And it's funny because at least up until this point, it seems they still haven't figured out to use it very well. Because still to this day, I get the phishing attacks with the worst English spelling and the worst grammar ever. So when that day comes, it's going to be scary. Because other than the spelling mistakes, a lot of them are not very obvious. But it's funny.
Which leads me into the question too, because we all think of we mentioned cybersecurity, right? So and that's huge, in especially protecting the manufacturing world too, because the manufacturing world cannot stop. That's what keeps us running, and we all take for granted how the sausage is made, right? It's just I'll just go buy more stuff. That's easy, right? But those cyber attacks come and they cripple everything, right? We've seen it with our own customers. We've had some industrial major food manufacturers get nailed and literally just radio silent for a couple of months on things like that. But we all joke kind of around, just like you were saying, cybersecurity, and the classic one you get is that email comes in and it's the boss is asking you to buy a bunch of gift cards or something. Yeah. But from your point of view, the real nefarious ones, what are some of the cyber attacks and the avenues which they're coming at manufacturing facilities? And the flip side of that are what are strategies that these corporations and institutions are putting in place to keep the walls up, yet still be able to connect to everyone and keep these
to be able to have
innovative world running.
Let people out, the right people in and out.
Yeah, I mean, it's an ongoing challenge, right? I mean, it's not like there's one silver bullet out there. But I think when we look, first of all, at all those different vulnerabilities or different ways that people are getting at the manufacturing enterprise, it comes from both the IT side as well as from the operational technology side. On the IT side, you're still seeing all those traditional things. I mean, the hackers are doing phishing attacks, even though, you're talking about the horrible syntax and grammar and everything else. Man, sometimes they still get people to click on that
100%.
link or whatever the case may be. And they can get into, as you guys know, I mean, once you're into an accounting system or whatever, it gets into everything. And that bleeds into the OT side of things too, because all of those systems are connected in such a major way right now. If you're somehow can get a phishing exploit that takes advantage of a supply chain manager, well, that supply chain manager's connection points are throughout the plant as well. They need to know inventory levels. They need to know production levels. They need to know about downtime. So those two, the IT and the OT, are connected more so, which makes a lot of those traditional exploits that much more dangerous. The other thing that we are seeing is with all those connection points on the plant floor, with all that wonderful Internet of Things technology, there's a lot of spots where you've got new technologies hooked up with legacy devices, which creates a soft spot. And hackers are smart, man. They're taking advantage of that, especially when you've got a threat landscape that's just getting bigger and bigger all the time. So there's lots of concern there in terms of, with all of that connectivity, there's more soft spots for the bad guys to take advantage of. I think where manufacturing is getting better is we're starting, and we're not there yet, but we're starting to break down some of those silos between IT and OT, get those folks talking to each other more so we can share. You can't cut and paste your IT security approaches into OT, but you can learn a lot from them.
Mm-hmm.
Taking from those guys and helping them understand your operational environment, just again, that communication between those two entities is what's going to be the solution going forward, because we're sharing a lot more organic understanding and expertise, and we're just doing all the little stuff. When you talk to cybersecurity experts, it's not always about, you're never going to have 100% defense wall around your organization. You can make the hacker's job a lot harder, and it's taking away all that low-hanging fruit and what I always call the blocking and tackling. I think everybody I know kind of rolls their eyes, whether it's in the office or even my daughter's at home. I start talking about blocking and tackling, but it's real, and it's the little stuff like that goes a long way, and that's where we're getting better. I mean, all that stuff, the Colonial Pipeline, the JBS, the recent stuff with Boeing and Dole, those hacks we're learning from them, which is a positive.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. I was going to say that you mentioned when you're dealing with all this, and we're getting better, but you said, like, even the emails or the phishing scams that are bad, all you have to get is one person that's a little overworked or a little tired. I consider myself a very tech savvy person, and I literally clicked on a Scotiabank one time. It looked very real. Just started typing in the password, and then I'm like, wait a second, I should probably just look at this one more time. And I can't believe it. It was just very, very good. But, like, you just wake up in the morning and do it, or if you're overworked. Like, so no matter how good it gets, people are always going to be the weak link.
Changing.
People are going to be the weak link for sure.
I mean, that's a challenge too with manufacturing too. We've got all this automation in place. At the end of the day, it's people running it, and there's going to be human error there, and that's a big issue. You talk about the human element in all this stuff. It's educating and getting everybody on board.
And that's some of the stuff that we're looking at right now. Like, for example, we build complex clusters very, very often, right? And we make it to the point where it's pretty easy, right? You don't have to have a ton of experience at this point to build a cluster with our software tools. But having having a piece of software or an AI machine learning tool that can go in afterwards and check over the cluster completely to see if there was anything that was missed, or if anything that was wasn't set up correctly, like those kind of things really interest me big time, because it's still, the human factor is still there. They're still doing the work, and then it's a great just check over to be able to see if there's anything that was missed. And we were looking at a tool very similar to that recently, which is really cool.
I mean, that's a perfect example, right? Where it's that mesh of individuals and technology that you really need to have successful organization or process or product, whatever you want to say. It's not about that tech taking the place of anybody. It's making it work together. So
diving back to the OT and kind of the IT worlds being separated in the past. Before I started my journey here at 45Drives, I worked with Rockwell. Well, I worked for a local PLC company that was acquired by Rockwell. And I noted how, for lack of a better word, ancient some of the technology seemed that they were using, but it worked, right? Yeah. PLC logic didn't rail, it all just got the job done, right? And then when I left and came into 45Drives world and everything, it just felt like I'd literally just jumped decades in terms of, where it's so fast paced. Yeah. Is it just all these cyber attacks now and this awakening to that? It's really pulling those automated control manufacturers and everything to like kind of pick their head up, reassess, and kind of catch up? Or were they seeing this coming beforehand and we're like, oh, we gotta start upping our game a little bit?
As much as I champion manufacturing in the sector and all the innovation and forward thinking that there is, the unfortunate reality is, until the pandemic, cybersecurity was just kind of a box that everybody checked. Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, do you have something in place? Yep. Yeah, we got something. It'll be fine. We're a manufacturing plant of 100 people putting out hardware. Mm-hmm. Who's going to worry about us? Right. Well, then the hacker realizes, hey, that hardware is used by Boeing and GM. And if I hit this little manufacturer, their supply chain is screwed up. They're going to feel a bunch of pressure to just pay me and get over this. Yeah. And that's what happens. Mm-hmm. And what was happening before, but there wasn't the level of awareness because people weren't talking about it for numerous reasons. Nobody wants to admit you're hacked. Mm-hmm. But then when it started happening to some of the bigger guys, that's what really got the conversation going. I mean, the Colonial Pipeline hack was really just a turning point in industrial cybersecurity. It brought a whole new level of awareness to things along the lines of like Stuxnet. I mean, you go back to to that point, what that meant, and it was just a real turning point. And people started thinking about it much more aggressively and having more conversations, which has been amazing because that's what's led to greater investment levels and greater awareness and more defensive planning and tools being put into place.
Stuxnet, that was the one for Iran, right? Where they were the centrifuge. They were trying. Is that where that came from?
I believe so. Yeah,
that was so wild. I watched a documentary on that. That is crazy stuff. And then it just got out to the wild and just spread like wildfire.
it was Siemens PLCs, I think.
What is it?
It was like Siemens PLCs or something like that. I forget the details of it now.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But it was really the instigation, that some of the exercises people were running, and they'd be dropping USBs in the parking lot just to see who would plug them in. And that was such a thing with Stuxnet, and just making sure your suppliers and vendors weren't plugging into your network without the right security protocols. I mean, it started the conversation, but unfortunately it stopped for a while until we started seeing all this stuff ramp up again.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, where it's like you go and it's the checkbox. So you're pretty much just being like, yeah, I'm doing it. We're not doing much.
Yeah.
And then you get nailed to it, and then it just turns into this bureaucratic roadblock of where like innovation starts to slow down and everything because you have to do so many.
That's the fine line.
And it's that fine line. It's an ever-growing thing everyone's trying to figure out.
We know this from a customer that we work with, we partner with on a very big project, and it's always this struggle. Like you got the security guy who thinks everything is the end of the world, and you need to literally close everything up. You can't have any ports. It's like, well, the cluster needs ports to be open. It's a cluster. They have to talk to each other. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, no, we can't have lateral movements. But it's like this constant fight. And then you've got the other side who just don't want anything. Just like, I want no roadblocks, which is kind of the side I was on, but I realized why we need some. And it's just like this never-ending tug of war that you go through. But it's just an interesting perspective.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to ask about too is the adoption of. We get a lot of manufacturing plants coming to talk to us as a storage company saying, we've got this big crazy idea, or not crazy idea, but like we want to start using more vision and everything to. Like one customer I can think of in particular, I don't know what they were building, but they wanted to take incredibly high-res images of what it was and start to use that for their validation rather than spot checking and having humans and stuff like that. And then because of that, they needed a bunch of storage to go along with it and everything like that. So I guess how much is that kind of are all the manufacturing shops really just diving into adopting new tech and everything like that, or is it really only like the massive corporations that are doing it? Are the more mom and pop kind of industrial manufacturing stuff just still doing it the old way, or is the whole kind of spectrum of the manufacturing world just like jumping on this? You know what? Let's automate as much as we can and everything like that.
I mean, it is somewhat relative to size and resources, but I think what we're seeing now, really, the pandemic again really jump-started this much more significant investment and appreciation for automation. And once you start with automation, then it bleeds into all those other technologies that you start looking at and what makes the most sense for us. So we really are seeing across the board manufacturers of all sizes really looking more closely at what makes sense for them. I mean, we were talking about AI and machine learning before. For some manufacturers, that they don't need that level of automation and technology to make their production model work. Others do. So I think what we have right now is just this wonderful hodgepodge or this great stew of different technologies that manufacturers can look at and dip into and see what works best for them. And that's what we're seeing a lot of. People just becoming more educated and wanting more information on all these diverse technologies to see what makes sense. At the end of the day, you're talking about some of these obstacles that can come up. Sometimes when we look at things from an IT or security perspective, we lose focus of the fact that manufacturers at the end of the day, their goal is to get stuff out the door. Now, they have to do it safely, we have to do it securely, all that stuff. But all of these things also can impact runtime or impact downtime, which is just a production killer. And that's the constant balance that manufacturers of all sizes and sectors continue to sort of walk in terms of figuring out how do I maintain uptime and production levels while still making sure we're secure and defending ourselves against all this different stuff that's going on.
Right.
And when you look at a lot of this technology too, it takes some downtime to integrate it. And that's where I think a lot of the suppliers of this technology have gotten so much better in explaining, hey, we're not going to shut you down for a week just to put this in. It's something that we can maintain certain levels of production without slowing you down. And I think that's maybe the biggest part of this and what has led to a greater, more open-minded receptiveness to these new technologies is they've gotten better at integrating it.
Yeah, I love the way you said that too, because you have to remember that, like, when you're a business or a service, someone else is buying your services to enable their business. Yeah. So if you come in and go, yeah, you're going to stop production for 2 weeks and we're going to install this for you, you have to, because it's us. It's just like, it doesn't work. We have an analogy here, like, how do you change the tires on a moving car? Well, I don't know, but we're not stopping the car. Everyone lean to the side and we'll get this one done or everything like that. So we did really benefit, as we are an IT company and everything, but we're manufacturing too on 45Drives side.
Yep. And
we learned that from our parents, quote unquote, Protocase, who really taught that get things out the door.
There was
our head assembler, Mr. Mike Hagan over there. Same thing. We're talking. He goes, "Listen, brother, I just got to get units out the door."
Yeah.
Like, he would, like, it just became his catchphrase. I just got to get units out the door.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So I love that you said that. That's every business needs to remember that they're not just in business to solve their need. It's like, we're here to give someone else a step up or something like that.
Yeah. I'm a little curious because I see, on your bio how many different companies and businesses you work with. So I'm just a little curious about the type of work that you do. Like, do you do consulting with these manufacturing companies and kind of give them the way forward for certain cybersecurity and things like that? Or just can we talk a little more about the type of things that you do for these organizations and companies in that world?
Sure. So industrial media, as the name would suggest, we're a media company. We're focused on content generation and digital marketing. So where I kind of come in, as well as a group of other folks here, is providing that insight on the marketplace and understanding this is what your customers are talking about. These are their critical issues and what they're dealing with. And then helping companies, like those you mentioned, really match up their product offerings and services with what those companies need to survive on a day-to-day basis. Cool. So it's really sort of playing matchmaker in terms of connecting everybody and understanding, look, we got buyers, we got sellers, we know you got the right stuff and we know they need it. So here's the way we would recommend putting it all together. And it's been very successful, and it's been a lot of fun too, man. Yeah. I mean, you dive into this stuff and we're constantly learning. We're constantly learning about the marketplace. Thanks to a great relationship we have with our audience, we're constantly learning about all of our suppliers' offerings because of those dynamics. So it's, we started kind of talking about the IT, OT silos and communicating better. And that's what it comes down to for us too, is just keeping those lines of communication always open, never thinking you know too much, never getting too full of yourself, and always understanding there's more out there to learn and better solutions to find.
Yeah, you mentioned something that's a reason why I love so much what we do here. And it's the fact that, like you said, you're always learning, dealing with different organizations, different companies that are doing different things. So you're always learning the next thing, right? And it's similar with us. Like, we have such a wide gamut of different types of customers that we deal with that are solving so many different types of problems. So I can definitely empathize with that. It's really, really fun.
You get to dip your toes in a little everything.
Yep.
It's interesting. You guys were talking about food before, food manufacturers, and that's been one where we've seen so much movement, like upward. I would call it upward movement. I mean, I've been going into food plants for better than a decade, and you go in there, like I said, 10 years ago, they'd still have the black screens with the green type, in terms of the homemade ERP type stuff they were working with, and that's gone, thankfully, and they've grabbed onto it. But just having that sort of organic knowledge has just been incredible in terms of understanding the different facets and seeing how it all fits together.
Really, really cool.
Is there any, speaking of silos and stuff, is there any particularly flavor of manufacturing, like food or whatever, that kind of just still sticks their nose in the air and doesn't really talk to anyone? Like,
does their own thing?
It's funny. I don't think it's really sectors. There's definitely companies like that.
Yeah, okay.
I can remember, again, going in and out of facilities for almost 20 years now. I could go into a Raytheon facility, and they were building missiles. I mean, pretty high-end secure stuff. And I take that back. They were refurbishing missiles. They weren't making new stuff.
We work with those guys.
A high-level defense manufacturer, and they were very open as long as we weren't going behind closed doors and things like that. But then you'll also get into some of these places like local breweries around here.
Oh yeah.
Like in Wisconsin. I mean, man, you are not getting close to
Nope.
inside the production facility because they guard that IP so securely.
Yeah, that IPA.
And what that does lead to, that leads to in a lot of cases is that sort of culture permeates throughout in their approach to a lot of different things.
Yeah.
When you're open to people coming in and taking a look, it means you're probably more open-minded to different production processes and different ways to constantly improve. When you're not, I think that's where some manufacturers can still get into trouble. You can't continue to rely on things the way you've always done them.
Yep.
Definitely use that as a basis, but always constantly, like we were just talking about, there's always a better way to do it. And just experimenting and looking at and investigating those different processes and technologies makes you better. So, like I said, I haven't run into any industry, but there's definitely some companies out there that are tough.
Yeah.
Awesome, man.
The whole craft beer thing makes sense too, though.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
just like the secret sauce. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I did want to ask you, actually, I did as deep of a dive as I could on other podcasts that you're on. You've done a lot of stuff, but there was one in particular. You did one called Bridging the Gap podcast, and you guys talked about aligning manufacturing with the younger generation's needs. Because, again, I'll be a little blunt, the whole kind of concept of, you almost think manufacturing, you just think old plant with dark lights, and you just come in, do your
the
work, and you
lines,
leave, and it's just the kind of idea of modernization and sexy. It doesn't work, or it's the stereotype skews that. So I loved the discussion you guys had on that, and we really related here because Protocase and us, we also believe in our field like good real daylight in and good moving air, no carbon dioxide and stuff. So I guess like, for our listeners here, what were some of your takeaways on how manufacturing can align the younger generation's needs and keep the flow of workers into manufacturing?
Yeah, unfortunately, manufacturing is really good at preaching to the choir. That whole thing. We've told ourselves how great these facilities are. They've been upgraded. The technology and the skill level that we need to run them is elevated. And so is all of those things. All of those stereotypes that you just mentioned, the industry has worked very hard to crush those things. It's not a dark, dingy facility anymore.
Exactly.
You're not, walking around worried about getting hurt and things like that. They're brightly lit. They're sustainable. There's a great focus on cleanliness and safety, and a lot of robotics and automation, which has meant that we need individuals in these facilities that are not just, coming in and punching a time card and working 8 to 5, but have technical skills and are given the opportunity to really contribute. We've developed those key performance indicators and more visualization throughout the facility, so everybody plays a big part in being part of a team. Mm-hmm. It's not just coming in and putting widget A on widget B and then putting it in a box and having it go out the door. It's solving problems. It's understanding what works best, how we can continue to make the company better, your work cell better, all of those stuff, all of those things. So that's all great. We just haven't gotten real good at telling everybody else about that.
Yeah.
And tell everybody else, it's talking to guidance counselors in high schools. Mm-hmm. It's talking to parents. It's talking to, youth coaches. It's talking about all these folks who need to understand that a career in manufacturing is not a lesser than. It's not something you do because you didn't want to go to school or you weren't sure what you wanted to do or whatever. It's a fantastic career with a ton of promise. U.S. manufacturing has the 8th largest GDP in the world.
Wow.
So if U.S. manufacturing was just a country, I mean, think about that and how much that we contribute to things on a daily basis, from the alarm clock you slap in the morning to the car, the vehicle you get in to go to work or school, to sitting at this office table. That's all manufacturing. It's all supply chain management. It's all critical infrastructure that needs industrial engineering expertise and skills. So reinforcing that with the younger generation, and not just those skills and that contribution level, but also helping them to understand you are part of a team. You can contribute to something bigger. That's a big part of what the next generation is looking for. Not just punching a clock, not just, showing up. It's about being part of something more than just themselves. Yeah. Manufacturing offers that in droves. And the more we can reinforce that type of message combined with the technology, it's a pretty powerful sales pitch.
Yeah, well said.
We take it for granted, right? Because everything is just always there when you need it, and you know what I mean. It's on the shelves. And that's when I really start to step back and look at what the heck would happen if everything suddenly slowed down or went away. Like,
Scary.
it's literally making the world go around every single day. And that, I think, letting the next generation, showing them that somehow, I don't know how that would be done efficiently, but like just showing them that would be just mind blowing for me at that age of what you'd be contributing to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So very cool stuff.
And there are some good programs out there, you know, a lot of skills programs, a lot of stuff with tech schools, the robotics program, like with Dean Kamen and all that kind of stuff. I mean, those things are awesome. Just need to do more of it and get the word out. That's what we're all trying to do.
Yep.
Very cool,
But
man.
you touched it, just to wrap up on that point, like when things work so well, you stop trying to see how it works behind the scenes. Like,
yeah.
oh, I need more stuff, I'll order on Amazon. I need this or whatever. It's all there. We bicker internally, not bicker, but we just go on about how the younger generation doesn't know how computers work anymore because they just work
just work
so
all the
well.
time, yeah.
And it's just kind of that. It's the having cracking it open and showing like, oh no, there's so
Look
much,
at all the
there's so much
pieces to
things
this.
to do. There's so much problems and fun and stuff to solve there.
So
So
many room for activities.
yeah. All right. So that brings us to about the end of our time here. So what I wanted to do, Jeff, is just end with first of all, thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much.
And we'll end with give our listeners just a little brief of what's going on in your world and where they can catch you and all the content that you produce.
Yeah, so we got a couple different things going on. You mentioned the podcast. We have the Today in Manufacturing podcast. You can sign up at manufacturing.net. Catch it on all the different podcast platforms, all that good stuff. Along with Anna Wells and David Manti, we kind of tackle the big stories in manufacturing. Look at stuff going on there. So that's always a lot of fun. And then I also do the Security Breach podcast, which again, go to manufacturing.net to sign up, or all the different podcast platforms. And there we talk about industrial cybersecurity. Just had an episode breaking down the Boeing attack, look at a lot of the different tools that are out there, and just kind of help folks solve some of those sort of in the trenches types of problems that folks have to deal with in industrial cybersecurity. Securing all those endpoints, all those different connection spots, different hackers that are out there, different groups and stuff. So it's been a lot of fun. Both of them have been great.
Yeah, they're both really cool.
Yeah, I've checked out a couple podcasts on both those threads. They were interesting. All right. Well, Jeff, thanks again for joining us. That brings us to the end of episode 7, and that's what's spinning this week.
You got it before I could say it. Good man. All right.
Thanks
Thanks,
for
Jeff.
having me, guys.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Take care.
Bye.